everybody. Welcome to Fabuleux Living with Angela Jones. Welcome back, everybody. Happy to be here. It has been a very long, arduous week. If you're watching this on the actual date that it is being aired, we just came off of another hard week of another black man being murdered at the hands of the police, and a lieutenant in the U.S. Army being assaulted by the police, and mass killings. A young Latino young man, young child was murdered in Chicago. So it has been a very long, heavy week for me, as I'm sure it has been for a lot of you as well. So if you follow me on Instagram, I made a very direct statement about everything that occurred and how I was feeling as a black woman and as a black mother. So for me, I know I'm building a brand, but I cannot separate my brand from who I am, and what I believe. So some people can do that and it's fine, but I could not just act like everything was normal. And I know other influencers and other people in general can do that, but that's just not my story. So, hence I was, radio silent this week on Instagram. So this is the first time that I am doing anything FL related this week. And this week has just been a week of self-care, just being quiet, very pensive, reflective, praying, hoping that it stops, that the murders of black people at the hands of the police just cease. So, for me, this week has very much looked like a lot of reading and journaling and just spending time communing with the Lord, just trying to make sense of any of this. So, for me, one of the things that I do to kind of relax, and I've always found it therapeutic, is baking. That is one of the things for me. I don't care what stage I've been in my life or what's been going on. Baking has always been therapeutic for me. I guess, just pulling all of the ingredients together and making something lovely and sweet, at the end has always helped me. So I'm thinking after this really heavy week, I wanted to bake something today. And I realized I haven't really done as much baking since the beginning, when I baked the biscuits and I made the cheesecake, and haven't really done, and the bread pudding. So I baked, but I haven't baked a cake. I have not baked a cake. So I have a treat for you today. It is one of my all-time favorite recipes, and it is so easy. And I know I say that a lot, but I'm telling you, if you are not a baker, I'm gonna look right into the camera and I'm talking to you, you can bake this cake. This cake is infallible. You cannot mess this cake up. I'm really serious about it. And the beauty of it is, all you need is a spoon or a rubber spatula, and a bowl, and a springform pan. That's all you need aside from the ingredients. You can make this happen. So we're gonna do this today. We're gonna make olive oil cake. And if you haven't heard of olive oil cake is a staple in Italy. It's a very light, kind of, it's not spongy, but it's a very light, fluffy cake. It's actually so light you could actually eat it for breakfast, like as a pastry. And it's so good because it's perfect with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, or you can make it for dessert like we're going to do today. You can actually eat it by itself, like I said, like in muffin form or in cake form. But today we're going to add some fresh fruit and some fresh whipped cream and kind of make it like, it's a very light, delicate dessert. If you are someone who doesn't really like sweets, this is the cake for you. It's a very light version of pound cake in a sense. Really shouldn't compare it to pound cake because it's totally different. But I'm just saying, if you're not, like my son Darius does not like sweets. He doesn't like anything with frosting. He's not a chocolate person. So he likes this cake. So this is like a nice cake to kind of just have around the house. It's not fancy schmancy because it's just a single layer cake. I mean a big single layer cake. Single layer cake. Try to say that 3 times fast. But it's like I said, it's very light. And because we're not using butter, we're using olive oil instead. That just gives it another, depending on the olive oil you use, it gives it a very light, fruity taste to it, depending on the olive oil you use. So anyway, we're gonna just jump right in and get to making this cake. It's gonna come together so fast, you're gonna be like, what? The show's over? Seriously, it's gonna go by that quickly. So first up, we wanna get all of our wet ingredients into the bowl first. So I have 3 eggs at room temperature. Remember, whenever you're baking, you always want to have all of your anything you pulled out of the fridge, your milk or cream and your eggs, you want them at room temperature. And, I'll be honest with you, I've got to look up, I used to know why. I can't think of it right now off the top of my head. But I will include that when I do the recipe. I'll make sure I have those notes in there. But I always know that my mom always took out her cold ingredients, and let them get to room temperature before she added them to the cake. And like I said, I will have that in with the recipe at the bottom. Why? Because that's important. I should have looked that up before, but anyway. The important thing is this here cake, okay? So, 3 eggs. 3 large eggs added to our bowl. Oh, that one didn't want to make it. Sometimes I don't like dealing with brown eggs because they don't, sometimes they don't always crack nice and pretty for me. Okay, and the third one. There we are. Grab a towel here. So we have our 3 eggs. Next, we have 2 cups of sugar. Add that to our bowl. Next, we're going to put in our 4 tablespoons of orange juice. And then the star of the show, we have 1.5 cups of extra virgin olive oil. Now, I have never really tried this with fancy schmancy olive oil. I have read 2 different, let me get all of that out because we need to have all of the olive oil, okay? I've heard 2 very different stories. I've heard some people say, oh, you need, the best quality olive oil you can find. And I've heard some people say it doesn't really matter. You can use any kind of olive oil. This is what I use. I use Trader Joe's California extra virgin olive oil, and it tastes fabulous to me. But I don't have a point of reference because I've never used a more expensive olive oil in it, and I need to try that to see if you can really taste the difference. Now this cake, as I said, it's an Italian dessert, but it's been made popular here by an Italian restaurant in New York called Maialino's. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Maialino. And this is their recipe. This is my, this is my adaptation of their recipe. And I'll tell you the little things that I do differently. They say, they don't really specify what kind of olive oil you're supposed to use. But another recipe that I read where the person knew the pastry chef at that restaurant said that they use a certain kind of, high quality olive oil, but it tastes just fine, just using regular. But make sure it's extra virgin olive oil. You do want to make sure of that. And then if you are like an olive oil connoisseur, it just depends if you want something that's more fruity or if you want something that has more of a grassy taste. It just depends. And I know you're thinking, why would I want that in cake? But I don't know. I have always used the Trader Joe's one and it's come out just fine, and I love it. So feel free to use whatever olive oil you have on hand. And then I have the zest from a large, and I just want to show you, I used a really large navel orange. So I have the zest from that. So I'm going to add that in. Now they said to use the zest from 3 oranges, and I figured since this is a pretty big orange, I just used it from this one big orange because this is a very large navel orange. I could have gone and used the other one, but I think that's going to be enough for me. Now if you want to go ahead and use more, if you have 3, maybe I would say medium-sized oranges, and you want to go ahead and just grate it all, go for it. But for me, between the orange juice and the zest from the one, I find that is going to be enough. Now the other thing that the recipe actually calls for that I've actually never done, because I'm not a drinker and I don't have it on hand, is Grand Marnier. You can add 4 tablespoons of Grand Marnier to it. But if for whatever reason you choose you don't want to, even though of course it's going to bake off, some people just don't like to use alcohol for whatever their reasons may be. It could be religious, what have you. They just don't have it around. They're going to be serving it to kids. You can totally omit it because, like I said, I've made it without it for years and it's delicious. But I did say that the next time I make it, I need to try it with the Grand Marnier to see if that makes a difference. So that's something that's optional, but I'll make sure that's also included in your recipe. Okay? And then the last thing is 1.5 cups of milk. But this is where I've made the recipe my own. Also, is that I've always used half and half. Because I just figured that, if I really want to, up the ante on this cake, I want to add half and half. So what I actually did this time, and I've done this before too, is I had a little bit of heavy whipping cream left too, and I didn't want it to go to waste. So I mixed that in with the half and half. So it's kind of mine is a combo of the half and half and heavy whipping cream. But there's no ratio as to what I did. I just used the last of what I had, but it's probably more whipping cream than it is half and half. But normally I use half and half instead of the milk. Now if you only have milk, I'm mentioning this because the recipe does just call for 1.5 cups of milk. So if you want to just use milk, you can. But for me, I feel like that takes it up another level and it's going to make the cake a little bit more moist by using the half and half or the cream. And then another thing, I forgot one. This is the last of the wet ingredients, I promise you. I add a teaspoon of pure vanilla extract because I just saw the recipe and I was kind of like, I mean, it looks good and everything, but there's no vanilla in there. I can't imagine making a cake without vanilla in it, so I add vanilla to it. So I think between the cream, with a half and half, and the vanilla, I just think that changes the recipe, So that's why I can say it's my own recipe now. So I'm just gonna whisk all this together, just so that it all comes together and it's nicely well blended and nice and well blended. Now while I'm blending this, let me also tell you that, or whipping this together, let me tell you that you can also make this with any other kind of citrus because the olive oil pairs really well with any kind. You could do it with I've done it with lemon juice and lemon zest. You can do it with if you wanted to do just like a citrus kind of cake overall, you could do like a lemon lime. You can use mandarins. I've done this with blood oranges. Oh my gosh. In the wintertime when you can get blood oranges, so good. It just gives it another, it gives it a different taste. And then I took sections of the blood orange and put that on top of the cake with the whipped cream. They Yeah, it's so good. So good. So you can really make this cake whatever you like. You really can. I have done it with chocolate. I've done them as muffins. I've done them as cupcakes. I mean, it's a really good go-to recipe. I mean, because it's basically just a yellow cake. The only thing that's different about this cake is that we're not using butter. Instead of butter, we're using olive oil. So that kind of makes it a little bit healthier, even though there's 2 cups of sugar in it. But it does make it a little bit better, a little lighter because of that. Okay, so we have all of that all blended. It already smells so fragrant between the olive oil and the the orange zest. It smells so good. So next, I already have my dry ingredients here that I'm going to sift directly into the wet mixture. So this is a 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. What else? Oh, and 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt. So we're going to sift this right in, a little at a time. So after I kind of sift it, I kind of want to blend it in, get some more going in there. And sifting it also helps with the texture of your cake. I'm really so mad that I did not have myself together, and I'm having a brain freeze about why it helps to have everything room temperature. Duh. That's gonna drive me crazy. You do know I am gonna look that up while this is in the oven, right? You do know that, okay? Just know that that's what I'm gonna do. I know my mother's probably watching going, you should know that! I can't believe you don't know that off the top of your head as much as you think. I do. It's been a rough week. I'm having a brain freeze. I'm entitled. So, alright, so we have all of that in there. And now, we have it all ready to whisk and blend together. And it's going to be kind of a thick batter. Not super thick, but thick. A thicker batter. And we don't want to over mix it. We just want to make sure everything gets well blended. And that looks like it's all set. So let's get this baby in this pan and get it in the oven so that we can partake. So I'm just going to spray my pan with some Baker's Joy just to get it so that it will come out with ease. All right. Don't want it to stick. And you know what? Just for good measure, let me also just grab a baking sheet, just because in case there's any leakage or anything out of these pans. Usually there isn't, but you know, the very time I don't put it under there, something will happen. Look how pretty and bright that is. Isn't that gorgeous? I mean, already it's just so freaking pretty. It's gorgeous. And also to me, even though I make olive oil cake year round, to me this cake just screams spring, summer. You know, because it's so light. Because you know, you don't want anything heavy in the summer. You want lighter desserts in the summer, typically. And this is right up that alley because it's very light. And it's actually perfect because Mother's Day is in a couple of weeks. So I was kind of, you know, I had that in mind when I decided that I wanted to bake this today because one, of its simplicity, and then two, because Mother's Day is coming, it's light, it's something that you can easily make. If you have small children, you can easily, you know, get your little people in the kitchen with you to easily pull this together for mom or grandmom or great auntie or whomever. So we're gonna get this in the oven, 350 for an hour. And check it at about 45 minutes just because, you know, ovens vary, but 350, 1 hour, top rack. All right, so in the oven it goes. We're gonna let that go, come back, let that get cool, and then when I catch you on the flip side, we will add our fresh raspberries and our fresh whipped cream. I'm not gonna make the whipped cream because I've made whipped cream on the show, and I'm going to link the recipe and the show, the link to that show where I show you how to make fresh whipped cream in the description box. So we get all cleaned up, get everything prepped for our whipped cream and our fresh fruit and our olive cake, and I'll see you on the other side. Hey everybody, welcome back. Can I tell you, I wish that we had scratch and sniff on the screen. This cake smells amazing. It is so, I mean, you can just smell, it's very aromatic. You can smell the orange, I mean, and it's so moist, so very moist. Like, I actually should have sprayed my pan a little longer because a little bit of it stuck, but it's okay because I tasted the perimeters that was, coming out of the pan. OMG. And I forgot to mention to you guys that this is my first time doing it with like just regular navel oranges. I told you I've done it with blood oranges. And I have to say, this is really, really good. So we're gonna, finish it off with some powdered sugar. Now this is nice and cool. I normally do this with a sifter. I was trying to do something a little different, but okay. It's doing what it do. All right. Okay, so finish it with a little powdered sugar, and now we're gonna dig right in. And I just wanted you guys to know too that it's going to be the crust. You want it to be it's going to be kind of crusty, in a good way, not like feet. It's going to be kind of crusty, and then you're going to want to, oops. Thank you. And I want you to see how, that's what we want to get a close-up. Look at all of that. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Look at that crumb. I mean, the texture, it's supposed to look like this, guys. It's not, undercooked or anything like that. It's just very, it's just very, that's where the olive oil and everything makes it so flavorful and moist, and it has the perfect crumb. Perfect crumb. So we're gonna turn it over on its side, and we're gonna dress it up a little bit. So we're gonna take some fresh raspberries, put those there, right here on the side. I like a lot, so we're gonna put all of them on there. Okay, I guess we'll stop there, and then we're gonna take that fresh whipped cream and we're gonna put it right on the top. Oh my gosh, y'all, I cannot wait to dig in. And then, to make it pretty, we're gonna finish it with a little mint sprig, but does that not look divine? It almost looks too good to eat, but we are gonna eat this. Let's not play any reindeer games. But I just want you to see how light and fluffy it is. Now, I want you to know too that it may, be a little jiggly in the middle, and it's supposed to be that way because the middle is almost supposed to be a little bit like almost just, a notch above like a pudding kind of texture. So it's okay if it's not as done in the middle. Mine got, pretty done, but you can see that in the middle. And someone else may say, if it was another kind of cake, you say, oh my gosh, my cake is underdone. Not the case with olive oil cake. The beauty of this cake too is that it lasts for days. It's actually going to be better tomorrow than it is today, like with most things. But it'll last as long as you keep it, covered, and it'll stay moist for a good, I would say, so today is Sunday, so I would say definitely for about 4 to 5 days, you should be good to go. And of course, per usual, I always have to add this too, it does freeze well. So you can take it and slice it into individual slices, so you can just have just enough to take out, leave it at room temperature, and then you're ready to eat it. So let's dig in. So I have already got some whipped cream on here. Got the cake. Oh my God. Y'all, I have to say, this is probably the best one I've ever made. I have to say this is probably the best one. Seriously, I'm not, even exaggerating. And this is perfect because it's, like I said, it's light. So if you don't want anything heavy, it's perfect as we're going into the spring and then the summer. This should be your go-to dessert. Like I said, you can add frosting to it. You can add chocolate to it if you wanted to make it chocolate. I'm going to put some variations in the recipe so that you'll have it. Like I said, you can do any kind of fruit, lime, lemon, orange, mandarin. You can do anything. And then you can add any kind of topping you want on top. And it's perfect. I'm in heaven. I'm getting ready to kill this thing. But I wanted to share some good news with you before we wrap up. So normally I would say, hey everybody, the recipe is going to be in the description box. Not today. So you're like, where am I going to get the recipe in after you talked about this bomb cake? On my blog. Blog. It's live today. It's live today. I'm so excited. So the blog is live today, as I just saying. And this recipe is going to be on the blog. So whenever we have a show on Sundays, and whatever it is that I'm talking about, whether it's home decor or whatever, and I'm telling you, the links will be on the blog. Everything will be there immediately following the show. It'll be right there for you to get the recipe or find the links to find out where I bought something. If I say I bought some fabulous shoes and, here's a designer and the link, blah, blah, everything will be housed on the blog. I'm so excited. So, hectic week, but this definitely brought me some joy. Announcing that the blog is up and ready to go definitely brought me some joy too. So this week, as all weeks, be good to yourselves. Definitely, practice some self-care and love on each other, everybody. Have a great week. Blessings.